Good evening, everyone. I'm calling the Finance Committee meeting for September 9th, 2024 to order, and it is 6 o'clock. And it's going to be a short meeting in that first time, who knows when, if ever, no resolutions to be brought before council tonight. And we have two ordinances. The first ordinance is temporary ordinance 32-24, an ordinance to accept the annexation of 5.0 plus or minus acres in Pleasant Township and to declare an emergency. This is coming from council as a whole, and I believe Councilman Schoonover is going to talk about it.
I am. Awesome.
Would you like me to address it, Councilman Schoonover?
Yeah, it's just the final piece of the annexation.
Correct, yes. So there's a 60-day waiting period between when the county commissioners grant the petition for annexation and when we're allowed to accept it. That date was up on September 7th. So this was your next regularly planned meeting, and that's why it's before you tonight. We'd like to get it done with one reading because there are multiple developers speaking with Stephanie Bosco at the Port Authority about getting this developed for residential housing, multifamily and single family. So we want to keep it moving if we possibly can. Thank you.
So I will ask for suspension with Ms. Teener as my second.
Any questions, any concerns about suspension? Great, we'll move on to temporary ordinance 33-24, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to acquire 5 permanent drainage easements necessary for the East Main Street sewer separation and court drainage improvement phase 1 project coming from water push control. Councilman Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have, as many of you probably recognize this, we've discussed this project quite a bit here in council, and the city needs to obtain 5 easements on 5 different properties in order to carry out this project. So I want to invite Stephen to come up and speak to that.
Thank you, Councilman. Good evening, everybody. So yeah, as noted, again, this East Main Street sewer separation and court drainage project, I've been up here a few times with regards to that project, so won't rehash any of that. But we are going through private property, or in one case, very close to private property, and that necessitates an easement for us on this project. So I reached out to the 5 property owners we need easements from. They're all in general agreement. So once I got that confirmation, prepared this legislation to go before you to get approved, and then our plan would be to move forward with getting those executed once approval is granted. If there's any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer them.
Any questions? All right. Councilmember Ailes will be my second, and we'll go full 3 readings.
Full 3 readings. And that concludes the ordinances. And we'll move on to departmental updates.
Good evening, Chairman, President, members of council. I'm here as the municipal arborist this evening. I understand you probably have received some concerns about some trees that the tree commission, or the municipal arborist and the city forester removed up on Chestnut Street, East Chestnut, in front of Firehouse Park. So I'm here to give you an explanation of how that decision was reached and why the trees were removed and what the plan is for a replacement. There was 5 trees along the front of the sidewalk in about a 3-foot tree lawn area, which we would normally never plant trees in because it's too small a space for a large tree in that area. The Parks Department over the years has received several complaints about that sidewalk, requested to have it replaced. We actually found the money in the budget. It was not a budgeted project this year, but we had enough money to go ahead and move ahead with that. So as the municipal arborist, I asked the city forester to go up and assess those trees. He was directed when he went up there to do everything in his power to find a way to save the trees. When he assessed them, he determined that the trees probably would die, would not be able to be saved because of the process of the removal of the actual sidewalk itself. So to explain, if you plant a tree, and I'm going to use an analogy here, so forgive me. So if you plant a tree in your yard, the tree's got a good base. It's got 4 directions it can send roots out in. It's got a good base to be able to grow in. Street trees, because of their very nature, especially in a very narrow tree lawn like there is up there in front of the park, basically grow in two directions. They can grow back towards the park away from the street, and they can grow along the street. So if you've ever watched sidewalk removal, they use equipment to pull the old sidewalk up. And when they do, that tears all of the roots along there up with that sidewalk. When that happens, the tree loses basically 50% of its support base for the most part. So imagine, the analogy I use is it's like making a person stand on one foot. So most likely what happens on average, the tree usually dies. And because we know it's going to become hazardous for wind events, high storm events, that it's eventually going to fall, land in the street, land in the park, land somewhere, we usually make the choice to go ahead and remove the tree proactively and then go back and replace them. So that was the logic behind the decision. That's what drove the decision, and that's why those trees were removed. We do have a replacement plan. We've had a replacement plan in place before we even really started to move forward with it. So in that tree lawn, the other issue I didn't mention with those 5 trees was there's actually overhead utility lines there. It's a very small one, but there is utility service that goes through there. The trees were in the utility service already. AEP had also contacted us about adding additional service. So we were going to have to heavily trim those trees back anyway to get the utility lines in if AEP puts them in. So again, another concern there. Replacement plan involves going back in with a smaller variety of tree. We have not selected it yet, but in that smaller tree lawn, we'll put a smaller tree that doesn't grow as tall, so it won't involve utilities, should not damage any new sidewalk that's put in. And then on the park side, where there's more room for those trees to grow, we're gonna go up the hill. So there's a slope, if you've not been up there. We're planning on going up that slope halfway, maybe a bit more, planting a larger variety of tree that will grow taller, will stay out of the utility lines and provide shade for the park. So my goal when we're done, and I can't promise it, but my goal when we're done is we'll actually have more trees in place there than we do now. They'll be younger, they won't be as big, but they'll grow and they'll be in place for probably a longer time. So there you go. That was what drove the decision. I apologize that you all had I know you've had concerns brought to you because I've talked to several of you about it. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned one of the reasons was the equipment that they used to remove the sidewalk.
Yes.
Describe that.
I believe they used a Mini X in this case. And what they do is they hook underneath the sidewalk and they drag the old pieces up, and then they use a front loader to load it into the truck.
So let me ask you this. Can you specify in situations like this that they take more care in the equipment that they use? Can you say to them, I don't want you to use that piece of equipment. I want you to remove it I want you to use a sledgehammer.
We could do that, but that would drive the cost of the project up considerably.
Okay.
If you do it by hand, that's one of the things it does, it is a budget concern. It is a resource concern for us.
So that piece of your explanation is the only one that really causes me concern, because if I had a tree that I wanted to save, I would tell the people that were removing the sidewalk not how to do their jobs, but I would have hoped that I would have discovered a better way than to. I don't want to ruin the tree. I don't want to ruin a tree on my property, so I'm going to find a way to remove the sidewalk without tearing up the tree.
Yeah.
That's really all I want to say.
Yeah, and I do understand that. I do think without the utility lines and without the other pieces that involved with that, the fact that the trees had already outgrown the space they were in, we could have looked at something like that. We did discuss several options. We discussed trying to shave the roots, which would have meant we would have been much more careful, with pulling that out. But in looking at not all the trees, but most of them, we did not believe that was going to be workable. So again, it is, we do take all that in consideration when we make these decisions.
Thank you.
So what you're saying then is that these trees were of a species that the roots typically are just underneath the surface of the ground, because the sidewalk's only 4 inches deep. Mm-hmm. We live on Allen Street. We got 60-foot tall trees in our front yard in that little lawn space.
Sure.
We replaced our entire sidewalk. The trees are fine. So, but we did jackhammer, they did jackhammer it. They didn't get a front end loader in there.
Yeah.
But, roots do grow a lot deeper than 4 inches on most trees. So I don't think you would be destroying all the root system for those trees just by simply pulling the sidewalk. Just a thought.
Okay.
Any other questions, input? Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Any other departmental updates to come forth? I see none, and I'll turn it over to President Porter for tonight's prep.
Yes, we have one special presentation tonight, Auditor Nettles. Do we have the gentleman who's coming tonight to do the presentation?
Yes, I don't see him here yet.
Well, we do have a special presentation tonight from the State Auditor's Office if they do happen to come. And that's it.
Do we have a new clerk?
Oh, yes.
Official?
Well, it's officially,
Maybe.
well, we were going to wait till the regular meeting, but we'll do it now. Yes, we do have a new clerk. Would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Anita Scott, and I am with the City of Lancaster. I work in the auditor's office as Trish's assistant, and I'm going to do this on the side and help you guys out.
So, thank you very much
Thanks.
for taking up the torch.
Sorry, Mr. President,
You're all good.
This is the meeting prep, so I figure I'll introduce
All
it
right,
later.
all right,
So
yeah.
We've all got it done.
We all
Thank
got
you,
it.
appreciate
Thank
it. No other
I
comments
think
there?
you're looking for stuff to add to the agenda.
I'm looking for stuff to do. Other items for Finance Committee? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Wait,
Oh,
we're doing meeting prep after. Did you?
Yeah, we're done.
Oh, okay, I didn't know you said, I didn't realize I actually have something.
Oh,
I'm so sorry.
okay.
So, temporary resolution 8524, which deals with giving money to the dog shelter. Do we know when they're coming? Oh, Carrie, oh, she's in the back. I thought I saw you walk in. Do we know when they're coming to do their presentation?
It'll be in September.
I will defer to President Porter.
It'll be in September.
Okay, well, at this time, just so I know there are some issues, I have questions for them. I actually would like to have 8524 tabled tonight until they come in and talk to us and we have questions for them they can answer. And if it isn't going to be tabled and go through, I will be voting no on it.
Okay.
that was, what number
I'm
was
sorry,
that?
8524.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Now I will look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
You're yes, yes, yes. We are dismissed
We are dismissed.
at 6:12.
It's okay.
No, it's okay.
What time will the regular meeting start? I was gonna see if he was gonna.
Hi, this is Chuck Sims with the Lancaster DARE program. DARE provides students with skills to resist the pressure of drugs, gangs, and violence, and emphasizes self-esteem, good decision-making, and communication skills. This month, when you buy a car, truck, or SUV from Buckeye Toyota or Buckeye Honda, The Buckeye Cares program will make a generous donation to DARE with every vehicle they sell. Thanks, Buckeye, for your continued support in helping keep our kids safe.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.
Join us in a moment of prayer. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, the courage to change the things we can, and finally, the wisdom to know the difference. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I now call the City Council meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you please call the roll?
Mr. Ailes?
Here.
Mr. Ehlers? Here. Mr. Bizjack?
Here.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Here.
Mrs. Hoop? Here. Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Here.
Mr. Schoonover?
Here.
Ms.
Here.
Mr. Wing?
Here.
And Mr. Wolfinger.
Present.
Let the record note that all 10 members of Lancaster City Council are present. We'll now move on to the reading and disposing of the journal.
Regular meeting minutes dated August 26, 2024. The clerk presented the regular meeting minutes dated August 26, 2024. Mr. Schoon, am I reading that right? Okay, sorry.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the journal.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the journal. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Reports of city officials.
Email dated August 27, 2024 regarding Finance Committee minutes submitted by Mr. Wolfinger. Email dated August 29, 2024 regarding Service Committee agenda submitted by Mr. Ailes. Email dated September 4th, 2024 regarding the income taxes August collection report submitted by Tax Commissioner Hamilton. Email dated September 8th, 2024 regarding Finance Committee minutes submitted by Mr. Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of city officials.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the reports of city officials. All those in favor, please state aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Now move on to communications.
Email dated September 4th, 2024 regarding tree removal at Firehouse Park submitted by Chelsea Durr.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the communications.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the communications. All those in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We will now move on to special presentation and awards. And we do have a representative from the Auditor of State here this evening. If you'd like to approach the podium and introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for your time and giving me a few minutes on your agenda this evening to speak. My name is Scott Brown. I represent State Auditor Keith Faber as his Central Ohio liaison. What that means to you, and more importantly, people like your auditor, is that I serve as her customer service representative, so hopefully I'm her first call when she other than on audit issues, when she has a question from her office. And I can give you Disney-like service to get things moving again in the city. But it is my pleasure and honor to be here this evening on behalf of Auditor Faber to present City of Lancaster with the Auditor of State Award with distinction. This award puts your city in a very select group. Of the nearly 4,200 entities that we audit every year, less than 4% are eligible for this award. The Auditor of State Award with distinction is presented to local governments, school districts, and other entities upon the completion of a financial audit that meet these criteria to be considered a clean audit report, or as I like to say, a very short letter from our office. The entity must file financial reports with the auditor's office by a statutory due date without extension on a GAAP accounting basis and prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. The audit does not contain any findings for recovery, material citations, material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, uniform guidance finding, or other question costs. Breaking through all the audit speak, what this really means is this award represents the hard work of all of the City of Lancaster staff and employees who make every effort each day to attain accounting excellence. We'd like to recognize the council, the administration, and the finance office that have done an outstanding job watching over every dollar. What this truly means is that across your entire organization, you have the people and processes in place that understand fiscal accountability. Specifically, we want to recognize Tricia Nettles for her leadership, professionalism, and exceptional commitment. So on behalf of Auditor Faber, I'd like to present the City of Lancaster the Auditor of State Award with distinction. Congratulations, and I can answer any questions. Tricia, this is where you come from. They're taking pictures. That picture is on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, we thank you, Mr. Brown. We appreciate this. Auditor Nettles, do you have anything you'd like to add this evening?
That's what I said.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. This, again, I'm honored to do this. This is a lot of hard work from a lot of people in the city. From my staff that get on, I think, every department's nerves of asking for all the little details and nuances to satisfy the state auditor's office, but also, again, for the departments that put the stuff and put up with this so we can do our due diligence and be very fiscal with our money. So again, thanks to all of my staff and everybody else that complies with what we ask.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We thank you. And any council members have any comment or? Okay, well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. We also have one other special presentation this evening. It's a less formal one, and I would ask Ms. Teener to join me in this. We are going to be wishing Councilmember Ehlers happy birthday because we missed his birthday. It was last week. So will you start us off on singing happy birthday? You got the mic.
Anybody got a shot around here I can start singing?
You got the mic.
Okay, everybody.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Preston. Happy birthday to you. These little freaks are so nice. Thank
You gonna tell us how many?
He can, he's young enough.
23.
20?
He's just
Wow.
a baby.
All right.
Sucks that old.
He can say
Well,
it.
congratulations. We appreciate
Thank you.
all the work you do here, and happy birthday.
Thank you all. Thank you.
So, petitions and memorials.
There are no petitions or memorials this evening.
Okay. So at this time, we've reached the point of the evening that we have permission of voters and taxpayers to address City Council. We've talked briefly about it earlier, and I know that I saw some folks signing up on the sign-in sheet. You have 3 minutes once you reach the podium, and we will be keeping that time. And I will also ask once again that you identify your name and your address when you come up to the podium. So,
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask? I thought we went from 3 to 5 minutes. Did we not do that, or was that just in public hearings?
yeah, we're at 3.
Or-
I've always done 3.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, I just didn't know. I thought it was more than that. Okay.
Okay. So is anybody coming forward?
Good evening. My name's Chuck Burgoon. I live at 346 Boving Road. I'm also the Executive Director of the Fairfield Family Forum. And I thank you for the opportunity to address the council. Our mission is to serve our communities through education and protection of our traditional family values.
Thank you.
We believe the backbone of our society is the strong family values, and the success of our communities lies with each of us coming together to defend and promote these values. It's been brought to our attention by the citizens of our community that a local establishment known as the Faux Bar has had one event on the 21st and is now promoting another one this Friday called Drag Out Your Pride, which is a drag queen exhibition selling tickets for the show, and then on Saturday spilling out into the square. It has come to our attention that the establishment intends to do these on a quarterly basis. Even more concerning are the entities supporting this event: the Fairfield County Health Department, the library, Destination Downtown, New Horizons, and the Fairfield Democratic Party, to name a few. Our tax dollars are used to support this abomination in our community. These events are in direct violation of several ordinances passed by the City of Lancaster, including Chapter 1139 and Chapter 531. We believe this poses a potential danger within our community, and will have a negative effect on our community standards. We believe this type of public exhibition not only violates the spirit and the letter of these ordinances, it also does not meet the long-held community standards our citizens have enjoyed for many years as a strong Christian populace. The influx of this type of lewd and obscene behavior gives many in our community pause as to how safe we and our children are with the influx of this deviant behavior in our city. We are requesting that the council take immediate action to enforce the city code and to halt further lewd and obscene exhibitions in this and any other establishment in the city. Though crude, these types of pornographic events and parades are philosophical statements. It says there are no rules about sex. Sex is trivial, and sex is for entertainment. Though debased, these types of events are a theological statement. It says there is no God who says we should put limits on our lust or channel our passions. Pornographic events like this is anti-woman, anti-child, anti-marriage, anti-permanence, and thus profoundly anti-civilization. Since civilization is a social support to the dynamics of life, pornography is anti-life. Even a casual reading of history tells us that when a society turns away from the teachings and morality of the Holy Scripture and we lost our fear of God, empires fall. I don't know if this is the ending of our age, but what I do know, if we don't change our behavior, it will be the end of our republic. I will leave you with this quote from Edmund Burke. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I believe you are all honorable men and women and will do the right thing to protect our children and our families and give this important issue your immediate attention and action. And once again, I thank you for your attention and pray for your immediate attention in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Brian Everett. I live at 201 South High Street. Having been to a number of drag shows throughout this state, this country, and this world, I am surprised to hear that none of them were nearly as entertaining as they were purported to be by the previous speaker. They are simply adults doing what adults are allowed to do under the republic, terminations of which our country was founded, namely the First Amendment, which allows for freedom of speech and directs that no government shall abridge freedom of speech thereof. I find it discomforting that somebody thinks that it is appropriate to put their viewpoints on the entirety of the city. I am not a Christian, and I do not want this community to be run by Christian laws. I want this community to be run by those laws which are established by the elected officials as chosen by those voters who come here and have desires to live free and not be subject to those restrictions which people may choose to do personally. He is, as an adult, can do what he is free to do. Luckily, under our Bill of Rights, both the state, federal, and local level, but when an individual begins to purport that their morality should be imposed upon others, they have gone outside the bounds upon which our very country was founded. As a 24-year military veteran and a retired military disabled officer, I spent a significant amount of my time under the auspices of enforcing, protecting, and providing those freedoms to everyone, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their personal views, irrespective of whether I agree with any of those or not. The difficult aspect of freedom of religion, freedom of speech and the other freedoms that are provided under our Bill of Rights and our other governing documents of our nation is that you will not agree with them all the time. There are many things that people do with which I do not agree, and provided that they do not impinge upon my rights nor breach any law established at the city, state, or federal level, the unfortunate reality, or in my instance, as I view it, the fortunate reality is that I have to let them do it. That's supposed to be the strength upon which our country was founded. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers this evening?
Hi. Good evening. My name is Patty Wassam. I live at 512 West Wheeling Street here in Lancaster. I wanted to let you know that I am a longtime resident of Lancaster. I was born and raised here and moved away for a short time and moved back to Lancaster because of the moral values and the family values that we had here as a community. It's always been a safe place to be, and it's always been a good and wholesome place to raise children and have a family. That we've got a lot of churches here, a lot of Christians in our community, and I've always been part of that Christian community. I am here to address the drag show that is scheduled on September 13th and September 14th. I really take offense to the September 14th outside in the square, just because it is a personal value, I will admit. But it does go against the city ordinance we talked about. So if you have heard previously, according to city ordinance 113901, sexually oriented lewdness is prohibited from being promoted, and the drag show is a blatant example of that. We are a Christian community. The majority of us want to live in a community that promotes family values in a godly environment, to live in peace and safety. We don't want the division that can cause when you bring those other elements into our town, because we don't have drag people here. They generally come in from a larger community like Columbus. I don't believe that a drag show in the heart of downtown Lancaster fits with our community standards. I believe that the Bible is the revealed word and will of God, and it is our book for living. It is our commandments for living. And according to Romans chapter 1, God calls this behavior vile, among many other things. The promotion of sexually oriented businesses has been proven to cause moral decay and ruin in many great cities across our nation. If you look at the cities, even Columbus, if you've been downtown Columbus anytime recently, and you go to the short north where a lot of this started, it's just the hellhole, if you excuse my French. It's just a terrible place to be. It's just horrible. Today in my neighborhood, one of my neighbors told me that she and her sister often would frequent downtown Lancaster. They both are married, both have 3 little children each, and they will no longer go to El City Cafe for coffee, where they used to go and take their children, because they found out that one of the owners is a registered Tier 2 sex offender, which means he has been found with and convicted of child pornography. And they don't think that that fits in with the standards in our community. So they will no longer take their children there, because they do not want to have them exposed to that kind of behavior. And I too use the same quote from Edmund Burke: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." Because for most of you, I don't know most of you, I know Becky, but I am not a public speaker. I rarely get involved in these kind of things, but to me, this is a real heartfelt issue. It's something that's not easy for me to do, to stand up in front of here and speak my commitment, which is, it's a very long time Christian commitment. So as a member of the newly formed Fairfield Family Forum, our motto being standing firm to protect traditional family values, I'm asking you to enforce our city ordinance.
Ma'am, you've reached your 3-minute limit.
To stop the planned drag show and any further planned drag shows in the future. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen to me and to read through the information that we had. So anyway, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Addison Curry and I live at 4765 Fosnell School Road Southwest. I'm 19 years old and currently a sophomore at Ohio University. I'm here today to speak about my personal experience on the emerging radical gender ideology that has been infiltrating our city. From boys playing on girls' sports teams and using girls' locker rooms at the high school to grown men asking to use the women's restroom at our city pool. I have experienced this trend in real time and I couldn't be more concerned. I attended Lancaster High School and graduated in 2023, I played field hockey from my freshman to my junior year. In that time, there was a boy who presented himself as a girl and played on our team. He would participate as if he were a girl like the rest of us. He would ride the bus to games and enter the girls' locker rooms and change with us. This made most of us very uncomfortable, and nothing was ever said to us about him being a boy, although we had our suspicions. Nothing was ever mentioned to my parents either. I imagine that these instances will continue to grow and be protected in the future. During my summer breaks for the past 4 years, I've been a lifeguard for the Lancaster City pools. For 3 of those years, at ages 17, 18, and 19, I've been a head guard. It has been a wonderful time, that is until this past summer. This past summer, we've had many issues at the pools. The worst issue in memory was when a very obvious man in a women's bathing suit told us he was uncomfortable entering the men's bathroom. In that moment, we allowed him to enter the pool through the guard room. We have never had this problem before, and at one point, he requested to use the women's restroom. We were all unsure how to proceed. While we were trying to figure out what to do, he chose to enter the men's restroom. We elevated the concern to our supervisor and eventually to our manager. Her solution was to leave the decision up to us, the lifeguards. This is not fair to do to teenagers. The only possible thing we could come up with was to clear out the bathrooms, and that is a major inconvenience to those who belong in those bathrooms. When we told the man that there were women in the women's bathroom, he would have to wait, he ran into the men's bathroom with no hesitation at all. The very next day, the same man came back to the pool, and he did not even ask us to check if there was anyone in the women's bathroom. He just instantly went into the men's bathroom. So this poses the question, if he truly felt uncomfortable, why would he enter the men's locker room without any issue? Especially after telling us it made him extremely uncomfortable to go into the men's bathroom. From boys on girls sports teams to men wanting to use the women's bathroom at the pool to the ongoing display and support of pride activities downtown sponsored by organizations that target this messaging towards kids and now drag queen shows. I have to wonder what is happening to Lancaster, Ohio. Is this the same town I grew up in? When I'm ready to start a family, is this really where I want to settle down? Ladies and gentlemen of City Council, these radical ideologies have slowly infiltrated our city, but make no mistake, they are here, and they are evolving and spreading. You must recognize the very real threat these radical ideas pose to this town and how unfavorable it is for young, family-oriented adults like myself.
Ma'am, you've reached your 3-minute limit.
How can I feel safe to raise my children here? Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jason Curry. I live at 4765 Fosnall School Road Southwest. As you all heard, my name is Jason. I am Addison Curry's father. I would like to speak from a father's point of view, and you can't imagine how I felt when I learned that this boy was playing on the same team, using the same bathrooms and the same locker rooms as my daughter. I felt betrayed by the adults that are entrusted to protect my little girl. I felt missed by the coaches and the school's administration who were responsible, whose responsibility it was to let us all know. My daughter would have never been on that team had I known, because it's not okay for a biological man to be in the same locker room as my child. Changing. With knowledge of my child, the rest of the daughters on the team. As a father, do I not have the right to know? Yeah, it's absolute BS. And now, because of the growing publicity, support, and affirmation, this ideology is spreading and infiltrating our communities beyond the schools. Now I have to worry about my daughters being approached by a man wanting to use the women's restroom in their summer jobs at the pool. My younger daughter was also a lifeguard this year. She decided to step down from that role because this made her so uncomfortable. And when they reached out to their manager refuses, still yet to this day, to answer emails about what policy is being put in place. My wife wishes she could be here to speak this evening with you all, but she had to work. She graduated from Lancaster High School along with myself. Her picture is up in the halls of Lancaster High School for sports achievements. We have a history at this school in this city, invested interest and to see success. My wife has reached out as a concerned mother and patron of the pools to no answers. She and I are absolutely disgusted in the direction of the schools in this city, which is why we decided to homeschool my younger 2 kids this year. And we'll continue to homeschool my younger 2 kids. Y'all have this information. What will you do with it? What direction will the city take? Thank you for your time.
Good evening. My name is Danelle Couch. I live at 4625 Jacobs Ladder Road in Lancaster. I'm a mother of 4. I'm a small business owner, and I've lived in Fairfield County my whole life. I was absolutely appalled and dismayed over an event that we recently found out called Light the Night. It is a drag show event and glow parade. I find that extremely offensive, confusing to children, a horrible influence on our society, and counter to the faith and family values that Fairfield County has been founded upon for generations. I have a couple questions, just to open-ended questions, not for you to respond, but just for you to think about. Is number 1, how did they get permission to hold this kind of lewd and obscene event in the public square of Fairfield County, downtown Lancaster? And number 2, how is it that my taxpayer dollars are funding this anti-family event through the Fairfield County Library and the Fairfield County Health Department, New Horizons, etc.? Thank you for your time. Have a great evening.
Good evening, City Council folks, Mayor, Safety Service Director, Law Director. My name is Amanda Everett. I live in the city limits at 201 South High Street here in Lancaster. And as you are all aware, I also serve as the Director of Destination Downtown Lancaster. I think that as someone who has attended multiple Pride events, there are so many families there, and not all families are like your families. And from an economic development perspective, it is unwise and unloving to not be open, welcoming, and affirming to all families, even if they don't look like yours. We have a tremendous opportunity here to recruit and retain young talent and create a city that is welcoming and affirming, where everyone feels safe. There are multiple Christian events that are hosted on an annual basis in the public square. For those folks that are not Christian, they can choose not to attend. They can scroll through on Facebook and choose not to go to the Bible reading, because some people have experienced serious trauma and sexual assault within those church settings. But even with those facts and that data and those personal, deeply personal stories, many critically thinking individuals know that that's not all Christians, and that's not all Christian spaces, and I'm gonna get to know more before I pass judgment and start labeling things that they have not seen before as lewd or disgusting or pornographic, when that is not, in fact, the case. Thank you for your time, and thank you for keeping Lancaster a top city that is welcoming, safe, and affirming for all families, even if they don't look like yours.
Sir, please refrain from making comments in the audience. If you wish to make a comment, please come to the podium and identify yourself and your name and your address.
Speaking of, good evening. My name is Eli Schleich, and I live at 763 Lenrico Boulevard in Lancaster, Ohio. A lot of you know me, and a lot of people I recognize in this audience I've gone to school with. I serve at Provisions, or I have dealt with you in the public capacity as I've been volunteering around the city. to sit here and be told that, you know, my existence and the existence of my queer brothers and sisters who are simply trying to get a paycheck is an abomination, is something that is lewd, is something that is pornographic, is simply untrue. The fact that we are here, the fact that we are putting on this event to show our pride, and the fact that we are publicly doing so is not something that is pornographic or lewd or vile. It is simply the fact that we exist. And if that is too much for you to deal with, then you may stay home. That is all I have to say. I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Hi there, I am Jerry Comer, 1565 Rosemont Court Northeast, Lancaster, Ohio. And being a lifelong musician, I would love to break out in a song of capital T that rhymes with P that stands for pool. And any of you that knows that joke or the Music Man understands exactly what's going on this evening, because it's all about what's the big villain, what's going on. I've heard people talk about morality and the Lancaster they know. And I'll tell you, I grew up in Lancaster and I live here, and I'll tell you the Lancaster I know. It is full of wonderful people and very caring people and gay people and lesbian people and Christian people and black people and Jewish people and all kinds of people. But when some people try to say what is right and what is wrong is when it comes into a really big problem. And they can hide behind the Bible all they want. The Bible, by the way, also has a lot to say about killing people and rape and all kinds of horrible things that God condoned. The Bible says lots of, I would never want to read this to children. There's scary stuff in there. But people all the time say, read the Bible, read the Bible. I know the Bible backwards and forwards. I do. And I know goodness and badness. And there's all kinds of things in there. But don't stand behind it and say this is right and this is wrong. And this kind of event being promoted is, here's the whole reason it exists. Because to this day, a man and a woman can walk down any street anywhere and no one's going to yell things or throw things at you or try to beat you up. When we still live in a society that's simply holding someone's hand and walking down the street hand in hand is seen as pornographic or evil or awful, that's why pride exists. Because some people still judge, and some people here right now are showing you, if you don't want to come to this event, don't come to this event. It's really that simple. It's so easy. And when they say it's out in the streets, yes, it is. There's usually, by the way, there's usually police there or sheriffs, and I think there's going to be this time. So if something lewd is going on, by all means, arrest them. It's that simple. It's that simple. Because I believe there is police or sheriffs going to be there. So if they see lewdness, by all means, or something pornographic, again, arrest them. It's a simple fix. So don't go, or if you want to show up, again, police will be there in protection. But sometimes the sadness is the police are there protecting the people. They're just trying to have a nice time. I worry for the safety of those people. I don't worry for any other safety in those moments. And as far as people, if you know, a 14-year-old might happen upon this occasion and be offended or whatever, okay, how did you not know your 14-year-old was going to be there? The family should be monitoring this, and if they don't like it, don't take them. It's really that simple. It's that simple. We're trying to make it more complex than it is. Don't go to the event, or you can come to the event, and that's fine, but also mind your manners. Again, police will be there. So as far as, you know, labeling this kind of behavior or activity as lewd or whatever, I've been there for 5 years, and I've never seen anything pornographic or lewd. And by the way, pornography is, I believe, by the Supreme Court of the United States of America, you know it when you see it, so they can't even define it. So think about that for a moment.
Sir, you've reached your 3-minute limit.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Jeffers. I am a
residing at 2151 West Fair Avenue. This is the first I've heard of this meeting, so I'm not prepared as these wonderful speakers. All these speakers have prepared. They have wonderful words and insight and powerful conviction. I just want to share my point. The gentleman in the floral needs a hug, as does anybody here who's upset. It is a very combative, emotionally division. And that to me is scary, and that can build up into trauma. I do follow the Bible, and I do know that the Bible said God made everyone, and everyone is to be loved. Our society has determined what that love is to mean. I follow what Jesus says, and it is not my position to judge what someone else does. God gave us each a free will. And there is a lot of scary things in the Bible, and I wouldn't read every bit of the Bible to an unsuspecting child without some further explanation of how the situation came about in the Bible. So the Bible is good. I don't want to use it to beat somebody in my head with. But I feel that my community I grew up in, and any community I would be wanting to live in, would be a safe environment according to my interpretation of what Jesus tells us God shows as safe. That brings religion into the situation. I know you guys can't necessarily use that as a decision that you're making. You're making more of a political and secular decision. I don't believe that you're allowed to make scriptural decisions on your board. I just want to express my opinion, and I think we all need a hug, and we need understanding, and it's not easy to do when we're up in arms, and I'm relying on the Holy Spirit to give me the proper words and God's love. It's bigger than me. I might not be able to do it myself, but I'm relying on the Holy Spirit to give me God's love towards people who don't look like me or talk like me or act like me. I don't know if that helps your decision or anything, but I'm looking for a decision towards an environment that is like in the 50s. There has been gay individuals since the beginning of time.
Ma'am,
There's
you've
nothing
reached
new.
your 3-minute limit.
And I appreciate your time, and I hope that everyone can walk away with a positive God's love environment. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I don't see anybody else making their way to the podium. Okay, I spoke too soon. All right, there we go.
Good evening, Scott Green, 603 Crestview Drive. The audience that thinks they know the Bible, you might actually want to read it and open it once in a while because you are deceived. For council, we're asking you to follow the laws that are currently on the books. We've been presented with those. We ask that you enforce those and do your job that's outlined by the statutes that you guys took an oath to uphold. We expect you to do that. We are not going to go away. We will be here, and if needed, we can replace you. It's not hard.
It is if you aren't living in the city of Lancaster, which I don't believe you do you?
But I know people down
Okay.
here, and I have people that are already willing to run. Okay? So, thank you.
When's his court date?
Good evening, City Council. My name is Maxwell Yanchar. I live at 1372 Rainbow Drive Northwest, and I would just like to come up here and express what I viewed today. This is a very hostile environment right now, and I don't believe that this is the place to be hostile towards each other. I get that there are some, differing views, and we don't all agree on everything, but I would just like to point out one gentleman. I feel threatened by what you have said with saying that the police would be there and ready to arrest me, and assuming that I, or anyone that does not agree with things that are going on, that the threat of police activity towards me. I feel threatened by that, first of all, just my opinion. But I'm a 19-year-old male. My family's established here. My dad is a surgeon, helps people no matter what you look like, no matter what you believe, and I believe the same thing. But there is one thing that I do disagree with. Drag shows can be a show of pride and who you are, but I feel like it's being forced upon me. But if that is being expected of me to accept, and then if I, being a white male with a fiance, I'm judged. I can't say it's normal to be a male in a female relationship. I can say it's normal to be male-male or female-female, but there's an immediate prejudice against me. And I just would like everyone to think about our political status in this country. It doesn't matter if you're voting for red or blue. I think it should matter on the, what you think of people. I think of people as human beings, nothing else. Doesn't matter what you are, doesn't matter what you do. You are a human being. We have the same DNA. We're here to live. Doesn't matter if it's for God or if it's for yourself. Thank you.
Hi, can you guys hear me? Thank you. My name is Matt Denowitz. I live at 306 North High Street here in Lancaster. Excuse me. We just moved here maybe about 3 months ago, but went to high school here. So did my wife, who lived here a little bit longer before. There are a lot of false equivalencies being thrown around here. I would ask that you dismiss those in your judgments here.
Sir,
I can't.
Sir, you're going to need to speak
Okay.
a little
Sorry,
bit
I'm
louder
sorry.
into the mic. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this better? Thank you. There are a lot of false equivalencies being thrown around here. I would ask that they be dismissed in the judgment here. I was raised in the church. I still think my faith is a bit of a mystery to me, but one thing that I have learned along the way is that God's love is always changing, and our interpretation of that is always changing. And I think that to open your heart to that is to understand why women can speak in the church and why the Catholic Church is even moving to, accept the homosexual community, the LGBTQ community. And I think that part of that change is just natural. You can't fight that. Fighting that is regressive and is going to set us back here. Part of the reason we moved back to Lancaster was for family, but part of it was also you drive through downtown and you start to see a different town and more culturally.
Sir, I
diverse
still
town.
can't hear you. I can't hear a word you're saying.
understand a thing you're saying.
Is there a way to turn up the microphone? No, is there a way to turn up the microphone?
Is
What's the
it
question?
turned off
Thank
by
you.
accident?
No, okay.
Slow down.
Is the green light on?
Slow down, project.
Yeah. I can't understand you.
All right. When we move back to town, better?
Yeah.
All right, give me a thumbs
Thank
up
you.
or thumbs down if I go down. Thank you. When we moved back to town, it's because we started to see the town that we wanted to live in. The whole reason we left in the first place was not a lot of diversity, not a lot of acceptance, a very predominant line of thinking. Coming back to this town, we're proud to bring our friends here. We're proud to bring our family here. Proud to show off what the town is becoming. Proud to see that the town is becoming a little more worldly. Lancaster does not need to be a closed-off place. Lancaster should open its heart to the LGBT community, continue to do so, and so drive mutual acceptance on both sides. Thanks.
Thank you.
I can't hear a word he said.
Hello. My name is Amy Schleich, and I live at 763 Lanrico Boulevard, and I do vote for City Council. So there you go. So my family, and when we talk about family values, my family includes drag. So your values, I think it's already been stated, can be different, but my family values will include that. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. And really, this isn't, I don't think, a matter for you guys to determine. I think this is all a moot point to bring this up. And when we talk about threatening that we're going to replace you, that's kind of a threat. But yes, that's the process. That's the avenue. If you want to replace City Council, replace them. If you want to keep them because they're doing a good job, then you keep them. But to tell them, hey, you're in charge of admonishing this because it's wrong, it's not wrong. It's simply not what you prefer. And that's your individual choice. That's your free will. God gave you that free will. Somebody said it? Yes, you have that free will. And I remember, the golden rule is different among many religions, but one of them in particular, and I can't remember the religion, says that, it's not do unto others as others would do unto you, but it's that instead of there being God, that God exists within each and every one of us. And that's what you guys really need to start to try to find. Because I'm addressing them, they can hear me, it's okay. So I'm gonna talk to my friends out here in the community that you can find God within each other. And then you can practice that great command, which is love. Your command is to love, okay? It's not a threat to mention that there's gonna be police there. That's a safety blanket for those that have been persecuted and targeted simply because of their existence. Police is there. If you think it's lewd, please contact the police and have them arrested. They didn't say, we're gonna have you arrested. Have the individual that you believe is lewd and breaking the ordinance of 1139001, have them arrested. If you think it's obscene, please go to the police and have that individual that's being obscene arrested. If you think it's deviant, I'm not sure if that's a law, but yeah, then go and have them arrested. If you think it's pornographic, go to the police. That's not a threat. That's encouraging you to use the system that's available to you. It's okay if they do it in private. That's the other thing. It's okay if they do it in private, but they're not allowed to be in public because I live in the city limits and I pay the city tax dollars, and so does my son, but that's not okay for him to be in the square and utilize it for that purpose. I'm just, again.
Ma'am, you've reached your 3 minutes.
Questioning. I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President, can I make a next apology?
No, we've had a comment from everybody. If you have an apology to make or if there's an apology you wish to make, reach out to the individual at the end of the meeting.
Apology to council. I didn't expect this to turn into this. All we was asking was for council to review existing ordinances and if they apply, to enforce them. We have nothing against the
Sir,
community.
thank you for your comments. We're going to move on with the business portion of the meeting. Do we have one more? We have one more. Okay.
I'm Regina Shaw. I live at 137 East Mulberry Street. First, I just want to say my sister Amy was the one speaking, and so I'm going to try to finish some of her thoughts, but just moreover, say that there was a church that had an event this past weekend down at the square. Not a church that I go to, believe in, not that I have any alignment with. And I walked by, and people were having a good time, and they seemed very happy there. And I was glad to see our square meeting the needs of our community. That was one small section of the community, but they got to use it. I don't understand the difference if the church can be down there and they can have a fair for their friends and families and open it to the public, why we can't have this event. What's really the difference? Because you don't like it? Well, I was raised Catholic. I'm a little bit upset with the Catholic Church. They let sexual assault happen, vile things happen, women are disrespected every day, so I left the Catholic Church. I have friends who are Catholic. They still go to church. I don't stand out there and block them and tell them they can't do it. I don't come here asking you to do that. I'm just simply saying, let them have their space. And if you don't like it, don't be there. That's all.
Thank you. Okay, we've reached the end of public comment for this evening, and we'll be moving into the business portion of the meeting. Reports of standing committees.
Finance Committee minutes dated August 26, 2024, submitted by Mr. Wolfinger.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to receive and file the reports of standing committees.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the reports of standing committees. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. We move to reports of special committees.
There are no reports or special committees presented to council this evening.
Thank you. Public hearings, we have none this evening. We'll move on now to the reading of resolutions. We'll move to third reading of resolutions, beginning with temporary resolution 8524.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in the general fund 1001 to fund the city's annual contribution to the Fairfield County Dog Shelter. Finance Committee, Mr. Wolfinger and Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wolfinger.
I make a motion, I'm sorry. I thought it was going to be tabled, I'm sorry.
Well, I am, if I didn't know.
It goes to the sponsor first.
Okay.
And he can make a motion, so he.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to council pass and gross and enter on the written record, resolution temporarily numbered 85-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8524. Discussion?
This motion is to fund the city's portion owed to the Fairfield County Dog Shelter.
Any further discussion? Councilmember Keenan.
Yes, Stephanie, I'm going to refer to you. Can I table after he's already done that, or is that?
That's a good question that I'm Googling right now. So give me just a second to review Robert's Rules of Order.
Would it be a motion to amend, out of curiosity?
No.
Okay.
No. It's a.
We already made the motion to approve and a second.
He did.
So now we have
Yep.
to.
We have to vote.
If we want to table it, we'd have to vote. That's how it turns into a nightmare. It's a nightmare.
That's why I thought you was going to do it.
Well, that's
You can
why I
always
was
recall the vote at the
wasn't
next
sure which
meeting
way
and
to go.
still yes on it. See, we can bring it up again. Just a thought.
So we have a motion and a second. Can we move forward, Law Director?
I would say call for question, but that's Robert's. It's non-debatable.
Yep. No.
Motion to table.
The president recognized Councilman Wolfinger first. So the chair already recognized him, and we have a motion and a second, and we need to vote now.
Okay. So we will move to call the roll.
Sorry, I was expecting to take that one. Okay, Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Ailers?
He's saying my name first.
I don't know, okay.
It's just, no, I'm trying to play along.
All right, let me start over. Mr. Ailers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bijdak?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Nyheiser? I'm sorry, Ms. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
No.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 8524 passes 9-1. We'll now move on to temporary resolution 8624.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract for construction of the Bovine Road, South Broad Street, and Hamburg Road Improvement Program paving project. Public Works, Ms. Teener and Mr. Luchtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8624.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8624. Discussion, Councilmember Teener.
Yes, this is just what it says is to advertise for bids for Boving Road, South Broad Street, and Hamburg Road.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ailers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 8624 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 8724.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to apply for a grant through the Ohio Public Works Commission to fund the Arbor Valley Drive Rehabilitation Project. It's through Public Works, Ms. Teener, and Ms. Kreitz.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion, council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8724.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8724. Any discussion, Councilmember?
Yes, this is
Teener?
to apply for a grant regarding Arbor Valley Drive that's at the high school from, what's 37 down.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 8724 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 8824.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into a design pre-construction services contract with various consultants for the East Main Street Improvement Project PID 122006 to appropriate from the unencumbered balance and to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the general fund 1001. This is through Public Works, Ms. Teener and Mr. Luchtenberg.
Councilmember Teener.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion the council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8824.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8824. Councilmember Teener.
This is just to get contracts in that to move forward with the East Main Street project.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 8824 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 8924.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into an engineering agreement for construction administration and inspection services for the East Main Street Sewer Separation and Court Drainage Improvements Phase 1 project through water pollution, Mr. Wing and Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution numbered 89-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 8924. Discussion, Councilmember Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We've discussed this project at length, so I won't go into too much detail, but just a reminder, this piece is to enter into construction engineering services, and the next piece is to go out to bid.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 8924 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 9024.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to advertise for bids and enter into a contract to construct the East Main Street Sewer Separation and in-court drainage improvements Phase 1 project. Water pollution, Mr. Wing and Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 90-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9024. Any discussion, Councilmember Wing?
Nothing further.
Hearing no further discussion, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 9024 passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 9124.
A resolution to increase receipts in Fund 8058, Violet Township of Lancaster JED, amend the certificate of other sources with the county auditor and appropriate from the unencumbered balance and amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor and the Violet Township City of Lancaster JED Fund 8058 and Income Tax Fund 2016. Finance, Mr. Wolfinger, Mr. Ehlers.
Councilmember Wolfinger.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution number 91-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9124. Discussion, Councilmember Wolfinger.
Yes, this is merely adjusting the revenue for the JED that's been created in Violet Township.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 9124 passes 10-0. Temporary Resolution 9224.
A resolution to authorize the City of Lancaster to apply for a .gov domain migration grant, a cybersecurity software and services grant to execute contracts as required. Administrative services, Mr. Luchtenberg and Mr. Bizjack.
Mr. Luchtenberg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 9224.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9224. Any further discussion?
Nothing at this time. It's pretty clearly written.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 9224 passes 10-0. Temporary Resolution 9324.
A resolution to authorize dispensing with competitive bidding for the purchase of reagents for the AU 480 drug testing analyzer at the municipal court due to a sole source provider. This is law with Mrs. Kreitz and Mr. Wolfinger.
Councilmember Kreitz.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 93-24.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9324. Any discussion? Councilmember Kreitz.
Yes, just as a reminder, this is to approve a purchase related to the municipal court's drug testing equipment with a single source provider in the amount of $168,000, which has already been included as part of the 2024 budget. It is a critical resource for the court, as well as other agencies which rely upon the court for their drug testing.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary Resolution 9324 passes 10-0. We'll now move on to second reading of resolutions, beginning with Temporary Resolution 9624.
A resolution to amend the certificate of other sources and appropriations, increase receipts, and appropriate from the unencumbered balance in the Police and Fire Levy Fund to 047. Safety Committee and Mr. Bizjack and Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Bizjack.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the second of three readings.
Second of three readings on Temporary Resolution 9624. Temporary Resolution 9724 star.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for construction of the Tiki Lane Booster Station Improvement Project. Water pollution, Mr. Wing, Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to replace resolution temporarily numbered 9724 with resolution temporarily numbered 9724 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to replace Temporary Resolution 9724 with Temporary Resolution 9724 star. Discussion, Councilmember Wing.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This is actually just a very quick and easy fix. The city had to push back the opening for bids on this project by a week from August 23rd to August 30th. So this version of the legislation reflects that change.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion to replace? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to replace Temporary Resolution 9724 with Temporary Resolution 9724 star passes 10-0. Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 9724 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 9724 star. Any discussion?
Yeah, just as we've discussed previously, this is the last ARPA project for my committee, and we have a deadline to obtain those funds.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 9724 star passes 10-0. Councilmember Wing.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 9724 star.
Second.
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9724 star. We've had a lot of discussion. Do we need any more?
So I have nothing further to add.
Okay, thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary resolution 9724 star passes 10-0. Temporary resolution 9824.
A resolution to authorize the Service Safety Director to enter into a contract for construction of the South Water Plant Concentrate Booster Pumps Project. Water pollution, and Mr. Wing and Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Wing.
This will be the second of three readings.
The second of three readings on temporary resolution 9824. Temporary resolution 99-24 star.
A resolution to appropriate from the unencumbered balance in the Engineering Fund 1900 for additional and amend the Certificate of Appropriations for the County Auditor and the General Fund 1001 for the unexpected costs related to staffing changes and the addition of an administrative assistant position in the Engineering Department. Administrative Services, Mr. Luchtenberg and Mr. Wolfinger.
Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Yes, Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to replace resolution temporarily numbered 99-24 with resolution temporarily numbered 9924 star, as given to the clerk in writing prior to tonight's meeting.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to replace temporary resolution 9924 star, or 9924 with 9924 star as provided to the clerk in writing prior to tonight's meeting. Any discussion?
Yes, apparently we neglected to amend the certificate of appropriations with the county auditor in this piece. The names of the expense accounts were different than those originally provided, so those corrections have been made. And this is the second of two readings for this piece.
Okay. So you'll be doing a motion to suspend after?
I will be, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Please call the roll on the motion to replace.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to replace temporary resolution 9924 with 9924 star passes 10-0. Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of resolution temporarily numbered 9924 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading, temporary resolution 9924 star. Any further discussion?
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Please call the roll on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary resolution 9924 star passes 10-0. Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record resolution temporarily numbered 9924 star.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary resolution 9924 star. Any further discussion?
Not at this time.
Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to pass and gross and enter upon the written record. Temporary resolution 924 star passes 10-0. We have no first reading of resolutions, which is a first, so we'll go with that win. We'll now move on to the reading of ordinances, beginning with temporary ordinance 2724.
An ordinance to accept the final plat for the Timber Top subdivision, code and zoning. Mr. Ehlers and Mrs. Hoop.
Councilmember Ehlers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion that council pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 2724.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to pass and gross and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 2724. Any discussion, Councilmember Ehlers?
Just like the title says, we're approving the final plat, and hopefully we can get work going and finish that up over there. So that's all.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 2724 passes 10-0. Move on to second reading of ordinances, beginning with temporary ordinance 2824.
An ordinance to amend permanent ordinance 33-23, the non-union pay ordinance, administrative services, Mr. Luchtenberg and Mr. Bizjack.
Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading of ordinance temporarily numbered 2824.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 2824. Any discussion?
Yes, this came up at our last meeting. The administrative assistant to the engineering department is retiring in January, and they would simply like to hire someone in advance to get them up to speed to replace the assistant.
Any further discussion on the motion to suspend? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 2824 passes 10-0. Councilmember Luchtenberg.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily numbered 2824.
Second.
A motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 2824. Any further discussion?
Not at this time.
Hearing none, please call a roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Luchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to pass temporary ordinance 2824 passes 10-0. We'll now move on, and this is quite a bit of a read, it looks like, temporary ordinance 3024.
Let me wet my whistle.
All
An
right.
ordinance authorizing the city of Lancaster, Ohio, the city, to enter into an amendment to a natural gas supply agreement, a tax certificate or tax regulatory agreement, a bond purchase agreement, and a continuing disclosure agreement or commitment. All is necessary, and any and all other agreements that may be deemed necessary or appropriate, the agreements. 2, authorizing the use of certain financial and demographic information of the city in a preliminary official statement and an official statement and continuing disclosure in connection with the issuance of revenue bonds by the Lancaster Port Authority. And 3, authorizing the payment of all necessary professional services related to the agreements, the preliminary official statement and the official statement, all for the purpose of the purchase and distribution of natural gas by the city and related to the issuance of revenue bonds by the Lancaster Port Authority to assist the city with its acquisition of a supply of natural gas, including additional volumes for sale to the city, and to declare an emergency. Finance Committee, Mr. Wolfinger, Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wolfinger.
I am so tempted to suspend that third reading. Second
I'll get it by the third one.
reading.
Second
I can't do that because.
Second of three readings on temporary ordinance, I forgot even the name now, temporary ordinance 3024. All right, thank you, everyone. Temporary ordinance 3124.
An ordinance to authorize the Service Safety Director to dispense with competitive bidding and enter into a contract with the Fairfield County Board of Commissioners for Tyler Technologies dispatching and records management software for the Lancaster Police and Fire Departments, to authorize a then and now certificate for those services and to declare an emergency. Coming out of safety, and Mr. Bizjack, Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Bizjack.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council suspend its rules and waive the third reading for ordinance temporarily number 3124.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 3124. Councilmember Bizjack.
I have nothing at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules and waive the third reading of temporary ordinance 3124 passes 10-0. Councilmember Bizjack.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record ordinance temporarily number 31-24.
Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 3124. Any discussion, Councilmember Bizjack?
Thank you, Mr. President. As you all recall, last month, we had quite a robust conversation surrounding this piece of legislation. In short, this legislation allows the city to pick up its share of the expense for the new dispatching system that the county has graciously allowed us to enter into a partnership with.
Thank you, Councilmember Bizjack. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call a roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Temporary ordinance 3124 passes 10-0. We now move on to the first reading of ordinances with temporary ordinance 3224.
An ordinance to accept the annexation of 5.0 plus or minus acres in Pleasant Township and to declare an emergency. This is city or council as a whole, and Mr. Schoonover and Ms. Teener.
Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council suspend its rules and waive the second and third readings of temporary ordinance 3224.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of temporary ordinance 3224. Any discussion?
Not at this time.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to suspend the rules and waive the second and third reading of 3224 passes 10-0. Councilmember Schoonover.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that council pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 3224.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to pass, engross, and enter upon the written record temporary ordinance 3224. Any further discussion?
Just as a reminder, this is the last piece of the annexation of the last 5 acres on Sheridan Drive to finish off the first part of development in that section of town.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please call our roll.
Mr. Ehlers?
Yes.
Mr. Ailes?
Yes.
Mr. Bizjack?
Yes.
Mrs. Kreitz?
Yes.
Mrs. Hoop?
Yes.
Mr. Leuchtenberg?
Yes.
Mr. Schoonover?
Yes.
Ms. Teener?
Yes.
Mr. Wing?
Yes.
Mr. Wolfinger?
Yes.
Motion to pass. Temporary ordinance 3224 passes 10-0. Temporary ordinance 3324.
An ordinance to authorize the mayor to acquire 5 permanent drainage easements necessary for the East Main Street Sewer Separation and Ann Court Drainage Improvements Phase 1 project. Coming out of water pollution, Mr. Wing and Mr. Ailes.
Councilmember Wing.
First of 3 readings, please.
First of 3 readings on temporary ordinance 3324. That concludes the reading of ordinances this evening. We'll now move on to tabled legislation, there being none. We now have unfinished business. Is there any unfinished business from any of the council members this evening?
There are no unfinished business before the council this evening.
Yeah, well, I'm asking them if they have anything that they wish. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, wait a
Clerk
minute.
Scott.
She's like, okay. She's like, I want to go, I want to go.
Councilmember Ehlers?
I just want to address our public comments earlier today. So I just want to start by saying I have full confidence in our law director to interpret our codes, our police force to enforce those codes, and our law committee to review and update and modernize all of our codes. You know, as a openly bisexual member of the city council, I struggled to hear some of what we had to listen tonight about, you know, certain aspects of people's lives being abominations. Unfortunately, as we saw, and we will always see, people don't care what you do, how friendly you are, how conservative, how traditional, how liberal, how progressive you are. They'll always have an issue with you no matter how much they agree with you, just based off of one little thing. And so in saying, you know, I will be going to that drag show this weekend. It'll be a fun time. And, you know, it is a paid event to get in. This is not something random people are walking off the street unless they want to pay and give to. So, you know, I fully support updating, modernizing all our codes in this aspect and the enforcement of them as they should be. But I cannot sit here and listen to people stand and belittle members of our community based off of something they were born with, and that is sexual orientation. I just simply cannot stand for that. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Ehlers. Is there any other comment? Councilmember Teener?
I do have a question to ask Stephanie. I mean, it's an enclosed event, correct?
By enclosed, you mean indoors?
It's indoors. There's
Yes.
only so many tickets per fire code, correct?
Yes.
And it's 18 and
I'm sorry.
over.
Yes, that's correct. Whenever the establishment received their occupancy permit, the fire department would have given them a number that they could not exceed, and I'm sure they're aware of that. It's typically posted prominently someplace, yes, and it is my understanding that it is an 18 and over event.
Well, I will say last year, I walked my dog downtown. And last year, and Amanda Everett can tell you, I was walking my dog downtown. I saw all this glowing stuff. I'm thinking, oh, you know, and I am a single heterosexual female, but I was going downtown with my dog and I saw this glowing stuff and I'm going and I'm like, oh, this looks fun. And then somebody's like, oh, this is a gay event. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm on city council. Everybody's going to think Becky Teener's a lesbian here because she's here with her dog. And I mean, I was like, but you know, I honestly did not see anything. There was a lot of glowing stuff. There was thing. And I honestly, you know, I mean, I have friends that do the lifestyle, and I don't say, oh, they're my gay friend, they're my transgender friends. They're just my friends. I don't label them like, you know, and I mean, I don't know. I grew up with, and I know most of you in this room grew up with Flip Wilson doing Geraldine. You grew up with Monty Python. You grew up with Betty Hill. You grew up with all these different things. And I know my brother and sister-in-law, he's retired Columbus police officer. And, you know, I'm not going to tell you how many times he's been married. He likes women. But anyway, they go to this drag show. He lives in Meigs County. They have the drag shows there. And I'm telling you what, there's no lewd things going on. I do believe some things are. They do have lewd things going on, but I do think that the police would shut it down. I think a lot of people are still going after what happened a few years back with J.D. Henderson. I think that is still in people's mind. I don't think that was handled right, but I think people still have that in their minds. And I just don't know. I mean, I'm not going. I have no reason to go. I just, you know, I just don't go. And I remember back in the day how many of you women went to the what were those shows with the guys stripping? What were those guys? I can't remember what they were called. You know, you're married, you're going to that. What? Chippendales. Okay?
Thank you.
I mean, I'm just saying. Thank you for that. Well, it was at Valleydale. I remember it. But anyway, but I'm just saying, just because you don't agree with it, which I don't live that lifestyle, but I'm just telling you, over the weekend, I spoke with somebody, and she said to me, and I love her to death, but she goes, oh, they show their genitalia. And I said, have you ever seen them show their genitalia? Well, no, but that's what I heard. And I think too many people are feeding off of each other of what's going on. I have brought my yearbook, which is fun. And I looked through it because I remembered this. Back in 1980, we had a Powder Puff football game. We were all dressed up like boys in our, the football attire. The guys, and I have a picture to show, one of the guys had a bikini top on with stars on it. And all of our parents came in that. And I mean, it's how you're raising your kids. Pay attention to your kids. And for somebody to made a comment about, replacing us, well, go ahead, replace us, because I know somebody in this gallery tonight has a court date coming up for something they did. So for you to point fingers at people, I think you need to point them back at yourself.
Great. Thank you, Councilmember Teener. I would take this opportunity to provide this comment. Our meetings are public meetings. It is a public square, essentially. We have a valid way that people can come and make comment. They get 3 minutes. We have a process. I would encourage everybody, yes, come, make comments, but be respectful. We're all neighbors. We are all people here who live in this community. It gave me a little bit of a pause when somebody said they felt unsafe about, hearing some of the comments made. That is not what this is for. And I will guarantee, maintain decorum in this meeting. We will not have people talking over each other. We will not have people directing comments at each other. You are here to address council, and we will welcome your comments, and we appreciate them. So just wanted to make that clear for everybody. Does anybody else have any unfinished business? Councilmember Schoonover.
I wanted to, there's a lot to unpack when, I think when people sit in the audience and listen to us go through legislation, and they're like, man, they're just speeding through that and it's a bunch of yes votes and whatever. We've had weeks and weeks to digest what we're going through. And then when we have a situation like this with a lot of public comment, I think the misconception is we don't listen to or care what you're saying or what you're speaking about, but it's just there's a lot to unravel. So I won't go into everything. I'm sitting here as we're trying to go through the meeting, looking at various codes for certain things that people brought up, and dealing with some of those law enforcement codes and dealing with the law director's office in my full-time job. That there's a lot of interpretation there, I think, that has to be unpacked. But I do want to address the swimming pool situation, because I think we're going to see more of those situations. And I think that we have to, when we're talking about what can council do, what council can't do, I mean, I think the drag show situation inside a private business, I don't know how much we can do with that, even if we wanted to. Now, I don't know anything about it being in the square. Okay, but when we're talking about our city pools, things like that, we just need to be forward thinking in terms of those policies and situations that might come up. I don't agree with what happened. I'm not a fan of that. When you're put on the spot in that situation, I don't know. That's a tough spot for teenagers, young adults, trying to figure that out, because you don't know who's being genuine in that situation. Are they legitimately feel that way? Or are they a pedophile trying to take advantage? So that, I think, is a situation where we can have more discussion, and we've had discussion with the administration. So those things are something that I feel when you bring it to council, we are having those conversations. As far as the drag show and things like that, regardless of your opinion on it, it doesn't mean that we can do anything about it. We can sit and listen, and obviously we can ask questions, but it's very hard for us to turn around while we're doing everything else and try and address those things. So I think I apologize, speaking for everyone around the room, it's hard to sit up here and respond to you in the same time frame of, because then it's just a back and forth thing. So I was not doing anything except looking up codes on my phone when I was sitting here, when we're trying to do other business. And I just think it's one of those things where there's a lot of, in my 7 years here, there's a lot of misconception on what city council can do, can't do, does do. Do we get read in on when trees are being taken down? No. Do we deal with it after the fact? Absolutely. Do we get read in on policies and procedures? Maybe not necessarily initially, but, when certain things, and again, I referenced the pool situation, I would have never thought to have a policy in place before that happened. So in a situation like that, we're going to have to react to it, and it's, I think, our responsibility to make sure we're all acting appropriately about that. And if that doesn't happen, then that's a conversation we have to have. So sorry for the long-winded response, but there's a ton to unpack in those comments.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember Schoonover. Anybody else in unfinished? Councilmember Teener.
I do respect what was done that day at the pool. I think that was a good decision because you didn't know. And I thought that was a good decision for that day, but I do not think boys should be using girls' restrooms. I don't think girls should be using boys' restroom, and boys shouldn't be playing girls' sports. But I really respect what you guys, the decision that day. But there's absolutely no reason for a man. You just can't change that as much as you want. That's just my opinion. You need to stay where you're in your own lane.
Thank you for your comments. Any further comments from council members? Okay, we're going to conclude unfinished business. New business. Any new business? Hearing none, we'll move to announcement of scheduled meetings.
Next regular sessions of council, September 23rd at 6:30 p.m. And there's a in focus presentation by the city planner. October 14th at 6:30 p.m.
Special meetings.
Special meetings, special council meetings, Saturday, September 14th at 9 a.m., City Hall, 1897 conference room.
And that special meeting will be council training on budget and the budgeting process. And somebody's arching her eyebrows because she's like, maybe not. And also doing some strategic planning. Regularly scheduled committee meetings.
Number one, Administrative Services, September 18th at 8 a.m., City Hall, 1897 conference room. Finance, September 23rd at 6 p.m., Council Chambers. Water Pollution Committee, September 27th at 7:30 a.m., City Hall, 1897 conference room. Safety Committee, October 4th at 8 a.m., City Hall, 1897 conference room.
Reading of bills.
MNCO, $116.85, publication of legislation.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills.
Second.
A motion and second to pay the bills. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. There's no need for an executive session. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, I would like to make that motion, we adjourn.
Second.
A motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you. Please remember, council members, to sign your legislation
goodness.
before you leave this evening.
Safety, COW.
Hi, this is Chuck Sims with the Lancaster DARE program. DARE provides students with skills to resist the pressure of drugs, gangs, and violence, and emphasizes self-esteem, good decision-making, and communication skills. This month, when you buy a car, truck, or SUV from Buckeye Toyota or Buckeye Honda, the Buckeye Cares program will make a generous donation to DARE with every vehicle they sell. Thanks, Buckeye, for your continued support and helping keep our kids safe.
The Frankie Smith Funeral Home and Crematory in Lancaster and the Johnson Smith Funeral Home in Baltimore have a long and wonderful history of serving our community. Feel free to give us a call at 740-653-0652. Stop in and see us at either of our two locations, 405 North Columbus Street in Lancaster and 207 South Main Street in Baltimore. Respect for tradition, regard for change.